MoveOn.org and other radical woke neo-Marxist groups are spreading the lie that Donald Trump wants to terminate the Constitution. Now, stick with me in this video because I'm going to debunk them to the point where even left-wingers should realize that they're full of crap. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. So a friend of mine is on the mailing list of MoveOn.org. Now, she's a conservative for sure. It's one of those know thy enemy type things, right? Now, truth be told, when I was younger, I would join as many left-wing lists as I could back in the day because they used to mail out pamphlets and stuff, right, and whatnot. So they would ask for donations that way. And I figured it cost them at least $5 per person per year to mail out all their left-wing garbage every year. And so I got as many friends as I could to do the same thing so that they would end up costing them money for nothing because we weren't going to listen to them. We just tossed it, right? So anyway, my friend sent me an email recently that she received from MoveOn.org, that clown show organization, where they are campaigning and fundraising on the leftist lie that Donald Trump recently called for an end to the Constitution. Now, I know all you leftists out there are going, well, he did call for it. I saw Rachel Maddow talk about it. Right? So, BS. So, instinctively, though, before I found out what he said, before I actually read it, okay, I thought, well, it's MoveOn.org. You know, they're just plain nuts, because they are. That group has always been nuts. They're always anti-American ever since the first days that they got their grant money from George Soros, right? So I knew that Trump, at that point, I knew already that President Trump followed the Constitution, like the boundaries and limitations of the executive branch, more than any other president in my lifetime. And I was born under LBJ, and I never heard any other president in my lifetime mention constitutional limitations on himself as much as Trump did. Yeah, for example, when the left forgot that Barack Obama kept illegal alien kids in cages at the southern border, and they tried to make a political issue out of it to trash Trump, if you remember, Trump signed an executive order to stop that practice, okay? But it was done just to shut the leftist morons up and take away their argument because Trump knew that the executive order was useless. In fact, here's Trump right after he signed that executive order, okay? This is him showing it up and then responding, and he says that he wants to go through Congress. Give it a listen.
He's had the political courage to take care of it, but we're going to take care of it. It's been going on for a long time. No, the border is just as tough, but we do want to keep families together. This is a problem. If you look at some of those horrible scenes from a few years ago, to me, they were horrible scenes. They were just terrible. And that was during the Obama administration. Other administrations have had the same thing. We're keeping the family together. And so this is it. And also, there may be some litigation. We're also wanting to go through Congress. We will be going through Congress. We're working on a much more comprehensive bill.
You see, he's saying we want it to go through Congress because he knows that an executive order has to be based on a power. He said the Congress has to act and write legislation that I can sign. He was 100% right. Okay? I never heard any other president talk like that. All right? There were many times when Trump would say something like that. It was like Trump first time out, runs for president, wins, okay? So he's a newcomer, right? He's the noob. And I'm fairly certain that Trump did this more publicly and openly than any other one. So that's how I immediately knew that to say that Trump called for ending the Constitution was a blatant fabrication and the left was shamelessly fundraising off. I had heard some other leftists say this as well. So when I read it coming from MoveOn.org, it made me stop and consider that I should actually look into it. Because when conservatives allow leftist lunatics to lie and those lies go unanswered, it gives them the license to double down on the lie and continue to spread it, and then eventually becomes mainstream. People start to believe it. And we know from experience that when that happens, the left eventually gets bored with the lie because they tell it so often and so much. They get bored with it and they feel that they have to grow it. They have to exacerbate the lie to make it more interesting. They think that if everyone else hears it, they're going to get as bored as they are with it. And then other people must be bored as well, so they got to try to make it more interesting. So they increase the number of lies about it. And so you got to nip that stuff in the bud, right? So I went and found Trump's statement. It was a post he made on Truth Social on December 3rd, okay? So I'll get into that for a second, but I want to read, first of all, I want to read the email, okay, that MoveOn's sent out. So I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's garbage and I don't want to bore you to death, but this is interesting, how they're going to fundraise off of a blatant lie about the former president. They say, Dear MoveOn member, former president of the United States, Donald Trump, just called for the termination of the Constitution. It came days after Trump had a meal at Mar-a-Lago with a group of Nazi white supremacists. There were no Nazi white. They're talking about Nick Fuentes, and Trump came out before it was even like an issue and said, I don't even know who the guy was. Okay, he was there to see Kanye West. Kanye was a friend of his before he lost his mind about Jewish people. Okay, so they go on. If you wonder how right-wing leaders can still be supported and even beloved by millions of Americans and the vast majority of conservatives, I'll tell you one key reason. See, this supposedly they put Robert Reich's name on this. Okay, that's that little munchkin guy who used to be in the Clinton administration. He was the labor secretary. He's just a complete total leftist a-hole. Okay, so he writes, because of the lies spewed every day by the likes of Fox News, Sinclair, I don't even know who that is, Breitbart, and the far-right hate mongers on social media. This is the single biggest threat to American democracy. Aren't you tired of hearing every single thing that the left comes up that they don't like? This is the biggest threat to democracy. Meanwhile, they're a threat to democracy, all the crap they've been doing, right? So they say, backed by billionaires like Rupert Murdoch and Elon Musk, these far-right news outlets and social media companies have created a disinformation bubble. Now, this jackass, or whoever wrote in his name, is the one who's the disinformation guy. Here's what the president said, okay? He tweeted out on December 3rd. He said, so, with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception, in working closely with big tech companies, the DNC and the Democrat Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? Now, here's the part that they're freaking out over. He said, a massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections! Exclamation point. And they go, he just called for the election. No, he didn't. The only way you could read that and say that Trump called for the termination of the Constitution is if you have a darkened soul and you come off with a preconceived hatred for the man. That's the only way, okay? Let's go over this, okay? So he says, a massive fraud of this type and magnitude, okay? So he's talking about what he believes was a fraudulent election, okay? And he's talking about all the other stuff that has recently come out that the Biden administration, they can't deny it now. In fact, they can't deny it at all because you had Jen Psaki come out and say at the podium when she was the White House mouthpiece, she actually came out and said that they were working close for COVID misinformation and disinformation, that they were working closely with tech tyrants, with the social media people.
For how long has the administration been spying on people's Facebook profiles looking for vaccine misinformation?
Well, that was quite a loaded and inaccurate question, which I would refute. Well, Peter, first of all, as you know, we're in a regular touch with a range of media outlets. As let me finish. As we are in regular touch with social media platforms. This is publicly open information. People sharing information online, just as you are all reporting information on your news stations.
But okay, so these 12 people who you have on a list, 12 individuals. Do they know that somebody at the Surgeon General's office is going through their profile?
They came out and said it because they never thought that they would get in trouble for this, that it would come back. They thought, well, we made it so that COVID is the most dangerous thing. It's an existential threat. Joe Biden tried to pronounce that word, but he couldn't. So they thought, wow, anything we do now is okay because it's a crisis, right? Well, no, it's not. So he's talking about all that. So he says, a massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules. Right? What he's saying, folks, get this, libtards. What he's saying is that when you have a massive fraud, okay, of the type and the size and scope of the fraud involved by Democrats, okay, they are the ones who are throwing out the Constitution. That's what he's saying. And maybe he could have worded it a little better, but hear it again. In that context, hear it again. A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. And so they think that these actual jackasses on the left, they think that Trump, former president, would make a statement like that he wants to terminate the Constitution, and then say, our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections. Okay, so he's going to praise the founders who crafted the Constitution right after he says he wants to ruin the Constitution? No. Okay, what he's saying is a massive fraud of this type and the magnitude of it allows for the termination. In other words, if the Democrats get away with violating the First Amendment, which it appears they're going to, unless there's lawsuits filed and Biden's impeached and others are impeached. Okay, so he's saying that if they're allowed to get away with this, if they were so bold as to do what they did and the other things that they did, okay, then what's to stop them? If no one's going to step in and say, oh, whoa, wait a minute, you guys can't do that stuff. That's against the law, right? So what he's saying is, if no one's going to step in and do that, then that allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, and even those found inside the Constitution. Now, that's what they say. Now, even with that explanation, you're still going to have boneheads on the fake news media saying this. They're going to be reporting this. Even Snopes got into the act and said, oh, it's true. They're saying, well, it's true. So you're going to have other idiots like with channels like that moron David Pakman. You're going to have him repeating that lie. In fact, he may have already repeated the lie. All right, I don't really watch his show, but I see clips when I watch HB. But you're also you're going to have the Young Turks, those jackasses, all of them. They're going to repeat it. He called for the end of the Constitution, right? Realizing that they're lying. I mean, you have to have a double-digit IQ in order to read that statement and the entire statement in its entirety and say, he called for the term. They just want to fundraise off of it. Okay, they just want to trash Trump even more. It's a lie. So that's it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you in the next one.
Welcome to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare scarring. Hand me a drink cause I think I'm going all in. Get me a shrink who can catch me when I'm falling. Cover up my scars, flip the handlebars, crashing in my car. Wake up